If you're someone that's been wanting to get into film photography, but you're a little bit intimidated by it, I have the perfect starter camera for you. Hi everyone, you're with Cielo. I am a photographer, videographer. Basically, any excuse to hold a camera in my hand, that's me. So you want to get into film photography, but you're intimidated. Well, I definitely was when I was starting to get into it. I really liked the look of film, but I was intimidated by it because you don't know what you shot until after you spend money developing, and then it's hard to undo or redo. But I do have a solution for you, and that is to buy a super easy to use camera where you can nail the exposure pretty easily. And that camera is the Canon AE1. There are a few reasons why I think this is the perfect starter camera. And I didn't arrive at this on my own. I did a lot of research on what are the best film cameras to start with. And this is the one that I landed on. So a few key reasons. The first one is you don't want to spend a lot of money on a camera if you don't really know yet how you're going to use it or if you're even going to like it. And so I got this camera for less than $200 on Etsy. It might be a little bit more now because this was back in 2020, but it came with a 50mm lens and it was in good condition. And so I was like, okay, great, I'll get started with it. The other reason why this is a great starter camera versus some other inexpensive cameras is because of the light meter. A lot of these cameras have different types of light meters, and some are a little bit harder because you have to do a lot of guessing. I'll get into that in a second. The light meter on the Canon AE1 is very literal. As long as you do what it says, you're gonna nail the exposure. So let me just talk about some of the settings here. Let's get a little bit technical. In the typical exposure triangle, there are three things you're messing with. That is the ISO, the shutter speed, and the aperture. The ISO, you don't have to worry about because that is set by the film stock that you choose. So for example, if you bought Kodak Gold 200, 200 is the ISO, and you put that in and you're basically stuck with the ISO, with that ISO until you're done with the film. So take that out of the equation. Now you have to worry about the shutter speed and the aperture. So with this, the reason why this is so easy is because if I set the shutter speed at a certain number, so for example, 250, and I half press the shutter button, it will tell me exactly what the aperture needs to be. So for example, 250, it'll say 5.6. Then if you want to have the right exposure, you set it at 5.6. Now, of course, you have to point it at the thing that you're going to shoot because it's going to be reading, the light meter is going to be reading the light for that scene. And then you just follow along. Some other cameras aren't as simple. So for example, this particular one, the light meter is a needle in a square, a needle in a circle where you kind of have to guess and you move around the shutter speed and you move around the aperture until the needle is and the circle overlap. It's a lot of guessing. It's a guessing game. It takes a little bit longer to get the exposure correct on this one. For this one, honestly, it tells you 5.6, you do it, you shoot, and boom. The last reason why this is a great camera to start with is because the focusing is pretty easy to understand. And if you've ever shot manual before, there's something in the middle and you have to line things up. And this particular lens, it's fairly clear to see when things have lined up and then you shoot it. So yeah, so for those three reasons, I think this is a really great camera to start with. And another tip for someone that's getting started, do not buy the super expensive film just yet because you're going to be experimenting with different film stocks, see what you like. So I highly recommend, especially if it's your first roll, to buy something that's friendly and easy to use and basically not expensive. So I started with the Kodak Ultramax 400. That turned out great and it gave me that nice grainy film look. So here are the photos. And as you can see, since I was still new at it, I wasn't screwing it up that much. After I saw the outcome of my first roll, I was so hooked. I was like, oh my God, I shot film. But I was so hooked, and it actually ruined digital photography for me because I don't know, it's just digital photography is so immediate and there's no anticipation. But yeah, I hope it doesn't ruin digital photography for you. If it does, it's fine. You're a film photographer now once you get into it. All right, let me know what camera you actually end up getting and what film stock did you shoot with first. Let's talk in the comments.